This is the Louie T Network. Hey, either you're outside or you're
in the lab room.
Who else could it be? To me, your man. Louie T, welcome. You are in the lab room. Of course, I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Week number 16 in the National Football League. Green Bay Packers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was my sole survivor pick of week number 16. And I tell you what, Tampa Bay Buccaneers hung tough in this football game. I was talking to my man Reed about 2-3 weeks ago. And he voiced his displeasure with the way this season has gone for his Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But he said, Lou, I tell you what, man, I really like the way this defense is coming along. And I've seen the maturation of this defense. The offense still has leaps and bounds to go to catch up to where this defense is. And to me, there's no surprise. Lovie Smith, defensive-minded head coach, bringing that Tampa 2 in. So you're not giving up a lot of big plays. You're going to have to matriculate your way down the field if you're going to get in the end zone. And that's what you've seen over the last month of the season. Teams are finding it harder to get explosive plays versus this Buccaneers offense, or excuse me, defense. And so they're grinding the game out. They're making it a lower scoring game. And they're bringing it down to a Buccaneers pace to where they have an opportunity to stay close and give themselves a chance. And you've seen that happen. And what's happening now is the Buccaneers are starting to get all of the players defensively to buy into what Lovie Smith is coaching and selling these players, which is this scheme works. It's a time-tested scheme in the National Football League. You're not going to make a lot of flashy splash plays in this defense, but what you will do is be sound in your principles, honor your responsibilities, and if you do your job and all 11 guys are on the same page, it works, and you won't give up a lot of big plays, and you'll have chances to stop opposing offenses. And so they've gotten better at running the cover 2 shell, and guys are starting to honor their responsibilities defensively, do the things that Lovie Smith is asking them to do. Your end result isn't wins, but much closer ball games that the Buccaneers have a chance in the fourth quarter. And again, as a football fan, as a coach, and as a player, that's all you can ask for is my team having a legitimate shot in the fourth quarter. Now, with that being said, the Green Bay Packers coming off of an ugly loss last week at Buffalo, a loss that could potentially cost them the #1 overall seed in the NFC playoffs and still could cost them the division. Now again, they win here in Tampa Bay and they go on and win next week at home versus Detroit, then they win the division, no harm, no foul. However, if Seattle wins out, they win on Sunday Night Football versus Arizona, which they did, and they win next week at home versus St. Louis, they would be the #1 seed, and the Packers would have to take that back seat as the #2 seed. So that loss last week against Buffalo looms large, so you can't afford to follow that up with another dud. Got to go on the road and take care of business versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's jump into this one quickly. Buccaneers come into the game at 2-11, or excuse me, 2-12. Meanwhile, the Green Bay Packers come into the game at 10-4. So to me, this was a game that I expected the Packers to come out and dominate. Well, far from that. The Buccaneers defensively, I just talked about them defensively, they did a heck of a job early on of stopping Aaron Rodgers, and not necessarily stopping him from doing what he wanted to do, but there weren't any big plays. That's been a hallmark of this Packers team, especially Jordy Nelson getting loose in opposing team secondaries for huge chunks of yardage, normally getting into the end zone. That didn't happen in this game. He did have a lot of catches, so did Randall Cobb. They were the crux of the passing game for the Packers, but the ground game was the problem in the first half. Eddie Lacy had 84 yards rushing at the half, including a huge, about a 52-yard touchdown run as he got into the end zone, broke a tackle, was able to get into the secondary, get loose, and get into the end zone. And that was the lone touchdown of the first half. It was 10-3. In the fourth quarter, this Buccaneers team hung around. Now, there were some Packers miscues that allowed this game to stay close. Packers had Mason Crosby miss a field goal. Also, Packers had 4 attempts for from the 1-yard line, could not get in the end zone, went for it on 4th down, did not get it. Buccaneers with a huge goal line stand. So that's why this game was still 10-3, a one-score game into the 4th quarter, but the Packers defensively really put the clamps down on Josh McCown and his Buccaneers offense, and he was putrid in this game, was Josh McCown, for most of the game. Really never gave his team a chance. The Packers sacked him. Clay Matthews had a couple of sacks. Julius Peppers had a couple of sacks and a forced fumble. Mike Neal had a sack. Daniels had a sack. They had a sack parade against this Buccaneers offense, and they really could never get into an offensive rhythm, could the Buccaneers. So the Packers were able to basically say, hey, we don't have to do anything extraordinary. We're only up 7, but we're fine where we are because the Buccaneers haven't threatened us offensively. And in the 4th quarter, they're able to move it down the field, get in the field goal range, extend the lead out to 10 at 13-3. And then in the later stages of the 4th quarter, they get in the end zone on a Jordy Nelson 2-yard touchdown. And so that basically put the game on ice as the Packers dominate this game really from start to finish. The score may not indicate how this game was dominated, but if you watch this game, you never really thought Tampa Bay had a shot. I never once said, man, this game is close. Tampa Bay could steal this one. I never got that feeling. I always felt like the Packers were in control despite the score being a 7-point game. I never got the sense that Tampa Bay was in a real position to threaten the Packers as Green Bay wins this game comfortably 20-3, runs their record to 11-4, sets up a huge matchup in Week 17 at home at Lambeau versus the Detroit Lions, who will be without the services of Dominic Raiola, who was suspended for stepping on the leg of Ego Ferguson in the waning moments of that game. So Packers are going home to try to clinch the NFC North Division with a win over Detroit in Week 17. Meanwhile, Buccaneers looking to hone in on the #1 draft pick overall in the 2015 NFL Draft. One more loss will probably do that for the Buccaneers. Either way, you're probably going to see this team draft a quarterback. The quarterback of the future is not on this roster. I think that is something that has been shown as a fact this season. They did not start Mike Glennon to start the season. They benched him. Then he got a chance. They benched him again. So that lets me know they're not on the Mike Glennon bandwagon. And now they brought in Josh McCown. And we've seen this before from McCown. He's a career backup. He's going to go back into that role soon enough. And so he may be your Week 1 starter next season, but don't expect him to hold on to that job for much longer in Tampa Bay. They dropped to 2-13 after the 20-3 loss in this game against the Green Bay Packers. That's going to do it for Bucks Packers. And thank you for joining me. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the Lab Room. Come back and join me as I continue to break down Week number 16 in the National Football League. See you in a bit.
In the lab.